All right, clearly Coach Saban is making his case here. But, Cece, has Alabama already done enough to deserve a spot in the playoffs?
Well, in previous seasons in the SEC, this is Nick's dilemma. Well, for one, he's trying to do what Ohio State did last year. After losing the game and then still not winning their conference championship and still getting to the college playoff. So that's the lane that he's trying to get in. But the thing about Ohio State, look at their strength of schedule. Look at their road win they had last year against a top 5 team in Oklahoma. And where does Alabama have a win like that? They don't have one this year. Now, Alabama was unfortunate that Florida State was not good this year. But part of the SEC's problem is they've decided they're only going to play 8 conference games. So when you play 8 conference games compared to the Big 12, the Pac-12, and the Big 10, they all play 9 conference games. So you have one tougher game in there. And Nick has gone about this. You can't blame this on the athletic director. Nick Saban has scheduled his teams over the last several years with cupcakes, especially before the Auburn game. This is what he's done. This year, he played Mercer before the Auburn. Mississippi State, Mercer, Auburn. Last year, Chattanooga. The year before that,
Charleston Southern.
Charleston Southern. Like, why is Alabama playing these teams? So now with the new playoff system where they're taking into account what is your non-conference strength of schedule. That is a part of getting the best 4 teams in college football. This was not a good year for Alabama. They shouldn't make an exception for Alabama unless someone in the top 4, 2 teams in the top 4 lose, then Alabama would be able to get into the Final Four.
All right, so first of all, no, they haven't done enough yet. They're not eliminated, but they haven't done enough yet. But I keep hearing people say what Cece said, which is, Alabama's just unlucky, Florida State's bad this year. Well, maybe. Or maybe they're lucky, because maybe Florida State was good, they'd have beaten them. Like, everyone just is assuming if this was a great Florida State team, where this would have been a great win for Alabama, that Alabama would have won this game.
But is it their fault that Florida State was bad?
No, of course it's not their fault. But I'm not.
No, it is their fault that Mercer is. Because even you can take Mercer's best year in football, and I can tell you that's not a good year.
And Cece, who did they play the 2 weeks after Florida State? In weeks 2 and 3?
Oh, they had a chance. They played Fresno State. That's a laugher. And Colorado State. Now, Colorado State is a better strength of schedule for them.
Mid-major team, as opposed to the teams that are like Mercer, you're going to walk over. But here's the reality for where Alabama is. Because the SEC this year does not have a strong argument for 2 teams in the college football playoff.
No.
The SEC this year has 3 outstanding teams: Auburn, Alabama, and Georgia. And that's about it. LSU's a good team. Mississippi State's an okay team. And then you look at Alabama's best wins. Oh, they crushed Arkansas. Yeah, and Arkansas just fired their coach.
Yes.
They crushed Tennessee. Yeah, and Tennessee just fired their coach. They beat A&M by 8, and A&M just fired their coach. There is one way, in my estimation, for Alabama to get in the playoff. Because here's what we know. Miami-Clemson play. The winner is going.
Yes.
There's 1 spot. Auburn-Georgia's playing. The winner is going. There's 2 spots. Wisconsin-Ohio State's playing. The winner is going. There's 3 spots. Oklahoma's playing TCU. If TCU beats Oklahoma, then Alabama has a strong argument. Now, the argument will be up against, maybe a Wisconsin team if they lose, or the loser of Miami-Clemson, or the loser of Miami-Georgia, or Auburn-Georgia. But if Oklahoma wins this weekend, I do not see a path for Alabama to make the playoff.
Yeah, and you can't have your best win against a 3-loss LSU team,
right,
or a Mississippi State team that lost 4 games.
Let me ask you guys a question. If you take all of the scenarios out of who's definitely going, who's not going, do you think, in your opinion, Alabama is one of the top 4 best college football programs today?
I don't think so this year. This is not the best Alabama team I've seen in the last 8 years. So they've lost a lot of depth.
Without the loss, would you still say the same thing?
I said this before the season. I picked them to lose to Auburn. Yeah. So it's not like I'm sitting here surprised about the conversation. I mean, I follow college football and I follow Alabama, and this is not Nick Saban's best football team. I would say this is more one of the poor, talented team, especially as far as skilled players.
Yeah.
Running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends. They don't have a bunch of pros like they've had their stack before.
To answer your question, I do think Alabama's one of the 4 best. But it can't be about what people think who's the best, or else why play the damn games? Like, it has to be about what you've done. And Alabama, because of things outside of their control, the quality of their opponents,
right,
they can't lose their final game of the year by 2 scores.
They can say the college playoff is based on getting the 4 best teams, but you have the 5 power conferences that it's based on. So, no, it's what are the best teams from the power conferences and one if you have to add one, and that's where Alabama would come in if Oklahoma loses to TCU. I wouldn't be surprised. There's too many, from a security standpoint, there's too many visual aids that's going to help them. They'll determine what happened. But to me, it's the next guy up. If JT hadn't been able to play at the beginning of the game, we have a tremendous amount of confidence in Dwayne Haskins. And then also we got another guy behind him we believe is going to be pretty good too. Ohio State has recruited well, not only at the skill positions, not only offense and defensive line, but also at quarterback. We're very fortunate. This was his 4th Michigan game. So I know they'll do an investigation. I'm not worried about that. I was more concerned about the players that were playing in the game. I think Dwayne Haskins, what he did as a redshirt freshman coming into that game, I mean, the amount of pressure, it's just really hard for me to describe what this young kid was able to do in helping them come back as a redshirt freshman. So for me, the story wasn't JT getting hit by the camera guy before the game. It was Ohio State's ability to put someone else in the game. We played in this game last year, and Michigan had 40 players that were 4th or 5th year seniors. Ohio State had 7. So they thought last year was going to be their year. So they came back this year. They want to make an excuse. Oh, our team is young. Well, Ohio State's still one of the youngest teams. We just have Benjamin Buttons as our quarterback. You know, so to me, I know they'll get to the bottom of it. Yeah. But to me, the story was about Haskins coming in and saving the day compared to what happened before the game.
JT said after the game he didn't think it was intentional, that there was just a ton of people on the sideline. Guy tried to scoop past and bumped into him. I have 2 questions for you on this. First of all, how many quarterbacks on Ohio State yesterday?
3. Would have better than the starting Michigan quarterback. 3.
You guys had 3 guys that would have been the best quarterback for Michigan.
Yes.
Okay, question 2. Not just all college football games, but this one in particular. I mean, I was at the Ohio State-Penn State game with you on the sidelines before the game. And there were, I mean, it felt like, 1,500 people on those sidelines before the game. Now, Ohio State did a good job of cleaning it up, and actually, I'm going to tell the audience what happened. They cleaned up all the sidelines. Chris didn't have a pass. I didn't have a pass. Pepper didn't have a pass. The lady comes around. They're about to kick us off. They see Chris. It's Chris. They're like, okay, you guys are fine. About 20 minutes later, new lady comes around. She's like, Chris.
Into the first quarter.
She's like, Chris, we're going to make you a pass so you're official, but your friends here, they gots to go. So Chris was a nice man, came up with us.
And especially your friend who thinks he went to Northwestern, he really went to Iowa, had a purple beanie on the sideline. That didn't help. The color of Nick's tie and shirt on the sideline.
That didn't help either. But before these games, like what we saw at Ohio State, Penn State, it's just standard for these guys to have to deal with on the sidelines, right? What JT was dealing with at the Michigan game. You just have
JT's been there 5 years, so he's dealt with everything. National championships, 4 or 5 Michigan games. So yes, he's seen it all.
Before we move on, can you get me one of those jackets? I know you wear one. I really like it. I don't have a big team I root for. It could be Ohio State. I'd like that to be the one.
Well, Nike is sending those out to people who they really, really cherish, and I happen to have one, Jenna. Let's see what they can do. If they get into the playoffs, let's just see. Okay. Because we know there might be 2 fans of the Buckeyes. This guy right here, he can't catch vision.
What did I do?
2
just
words.
Because I like Harbaugh, I can't be a fan of the Buckeyes?
Oh, yeah. His 3rd season. How'd he do? Did he finish 4th in the Big Ten this year?
I think you also picked Michigan.
Did he finish 4th or 3rd this year? I think 3rd or 4th. Like, that's his highest finish in 3 years. Urban Meyer in his 3rd year, Ohio State won national championship.
So yes on the jacket?
Put that in your pipe and smoke it, or in your black and mild, twist it up. Do whatever you want with it.
So I'm going to get so yes for the jacket. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.